All right, folks, we are back at it. I, uh, I, I, I miss these pieces here, um, and I really want to take some time in this introduction, because I have known Josh now for a hot 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes, an hour. Who I met last week, and he was able to draw me out and spew and kind of speak and speak and speak. But I knew a little bit about his story, not a lot, and um, there were a couple compelling things that I said I need to ask you, but I don't want to just do it in a follow up call. I want to do it in a leadership call, just knowing what you've been able to do, how you've been able to deliver. So I somehow convinced them to join me and do this tango that we're about to do. So, Josh has an incredible history that I know a lot of folks can learn from. Uh, and the level of what he was able to bring just in the conversation we had, I was like, oh, it's on. So, let's welcome Josh Peltz to the stage. Josh, I can't thank you enough for, for letting me bamboozle you into this.
This is the worst idea you've ever had. I mean,
You don't
honestly,
know me then.
this is probably the low part of your career. It only goes down from here. But listen, who canceled is my first question. Who
Oh,
must have canceled for you to pick me as your first person today?
you are not the bottom of the barrel, number one. Number two, if it gets any lower than where I've been in the past, holy baby, I'm in an alternate universe, right? I'm in the upside down world at that point. Uh, I love this, and I knew you were going to bring some fire to this, so thank you. Um, we can go through a ton of different things that you've gone through, right? And I think as people are looking at you, and I'm going to kind of maybe change focus here so that I can put you as a primary. Um, as we look at you right now, um, I can go to your LinkedIn. I could Google you. I could throw your shit into ChatGPT and figure out how to approach you. And I said to myself, nope. There's one compelling question in my mind that I said, I've got to get to the bottom of this, and it's got maybe a tiny two-parter piece to it. Number one, why are you so beautifully presented with a color coded matching bookcase behind you?
Yes.
And then number two, if there was one book out of that selection or the history of books that you've read for executive leadership development, insightfulness, what was that one book that you would recommend? Because I love that spectrum that you've got behind you. And I said it last time. So why don't we kick it off with that really compelling, important question?
These are all fake. It's not a virtual background, it's a real background, but it's just the dust covers. It's the dust jackets. I haven't read a single one of these. So thank you for this first question. So you researched me voraciously. You read everything I've posted. You read about me on LinkedIn and Google, and that's your first question. Okay.
That is my first question.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, we'll go with that. I can take no credit for this. My wife did the color coding. I can't find a damn book. It's very frustrating. I had a Dewey Decimal System all figured out, and then she said, "Let's make it really Zoom appropriate." And this is what we've done. So I can't tell you which book I've read. I have read most of these books, to be honest. You can't see all of them, of course. It does go up. I will show the audience. She actually did
Oh,
wallpaper on the ceiling,
wow.
which is super neat. She
Wow.
is a very creative person. I attribute a lot of my success in all seriousness to her. She's
Wow.
the wind beneath my wings. She's the whisperer when I need help. She's the one that
Wow.
supports me and makes me a better person, better
Woo.
professional, and keeps me very grounded when people like you invite me to their podcasts and live streams. But
Wow.
she did do my office, and so all the credit is attributed to her. Which book? I was thinking about some of the inspirations and some of the the support that I've received over my life. I started reading comic books at a very early age, so I do have some graphic novels and some comics up here. I went through a pretty traumatic part of my upbringing where there was a pretty contentious divorce between my parents. My sister and I faced a lot of that. My escape was superheroes. And so I love the story. I love the arc, the storyline of failure and success and supporting each other and being a good team has really evolved over my life to be one of the sustaining themes. And so there's a lot of comic stories that I really equated into good business parables. But I'd say Dale Carnegie, the How to Win Friends and Influence People. I
Right.
actually just downloaded the audiobook, which has been updated for more modern times, but it still keeps a lot of the stories. It's amazing. This is written 80 years ago, but some of the stories are so relevant today
Yep.
because humans have not really changed their interaction styles. It's really the way that people
Yep.
have communicated and negotiated and congregated and supported each other. So I'd say it's the Dale Carnegie book.
Wow. Already dropping it like it's hot. You just dropped like three different core key beautiful topics. Making sure that you recognize the people that are holding you up and enabling you. Kudos to your wife and apologies and condolences to your wife for having to work with you and deal with you. She's earned her sainthood, I'm sure. But also, going back to the core roots of the kinds of books that, people may forget. I love that. I love that. So
What's your favorite book?
I will say my favorite book, and you're not supposed to be flipping the script on me, but I'm going to give it to you. Um, but so Napoleon Hill and a bunch of other core books, but I think the one that had the most impact on my life, and there's a lot of controversy around the implementation, the alpha component of this, the specialty that this book kind of brings into account. And if he hears me, I am for hire. I would love to be part of your group. It's Chris Voss's Never Split the Difference, right? I was never really a big Tony Robbins fan, right? But all of those concepts that all of these coaches and all of these leaders kind of pull into play, whether it's NLP or these, neurolinguistic, blah, 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 all these other components, they carry through in a lot of different themes and Chris Voss was able to kind of take those and they're mapped specialty to what he's done. But I had an insane interest in the behavioral analysis unit, and I'm a big criminal minds logistical type of person. So the way he mapped it out, and the way I could tie it to the things I was already doing, the things that are out there scientifically proven, that was monumental to me. Right. It's also why backup book to that, which I read at the end of last year, was Wisdom of the Psychopath. I had to read that to make sure I wasn't trying to use the Chris Voss techniques as a psychopath to influence people. And I said, no, I'm too genuine. I'm too honest. I'm using it to kind of build relationships better and to kind of understand what I might need to do in certain scenarios. So those two books are pretty damn impactful. The one that I had the most fun with, I think last year or the year before, which I wish we weren't in office so I could just leave it on my desk, was How to Murder Your Employer or something similar to that. It was a good fiction book, but and that was written by Rupert Holmes. You know who Rupert Holmes is?
No.
I bet you do. He is the artist behind Pina Colada.
Oh wow. Yes, I do.
So
Yeah.
yes, so those are the three books that I would put as the three books that I would say you really want to have a little bit of a mind shift. Yes, but I've got books upon books. This year was an incredible year for books as well. But I love that you picked up on again. There's a book that's anchored to tons of success, which people may ignore because it's got dust on it in almost every library. It may be too big, it may be too much to read because everybody wants, anything with a curse word in it type of book, title. So the book component to me was the first thing that drew me. Right, I'm just it was my first job. Right, you talk about the Dewey Decimal System. 80% of the people who are coming up now, 90% don't even know what that means. Right, so but I love that. I love that. So if you have a
So
backup
mine's
book,
a happy feel good book by Dale Carnegie. I like Zig Ziglar and a bunch of the old school people.
right, right,
There is a biography of Ogilvy, David Ogilvy, that was amazing on
yep,
advertising. A
yep,
lot of classic foundations. Yours is about murdering employers and psychopaths.
psychopaths and how to
Interesting.
how to manipulate people. Yeah, I'm just hey, listen, I'm
Is
I'm true.
this a safe place? Do I need like a word to escape this room that you've built for me?
Pink elephants. Yes, this is a safe place. Again, this is being memorialized, so the rest of the world knows. about me as well. So it's okay. So I share so that you can share too, and be and be open and vulnerable.
Uh, all
So
right, so let's get into it. What other questions? So I don't know if I did your book question service. I've got a lot. I really enjoyed this book, Grit. Truth About
yes,
Money is a phenomenal book by Rick Edelman. I have a lot of sales books back there because I enjoy sales. I think sales is really kind of a microcosm of human experience. It
yeah,
does involve attraction and negotiation and some persuasion. One of my favorite books, I think, is by Robert Greene. I believe it's called The 48 Rules or 48 Laws of Power. Um,
okay,
and he uses history, Napoleon, Gandhi, Attila the Hun, Mata Hari, a variety of different heroes and villains throughout time, and how they actually got power, either
right,
ill-gotten or well received, and what they did with that power. Some were manipulative, Machiavellian, others
right,
were
right.
enticing and intriguing, and some were supportive and complimentary. And so many different dimensions on what you can do for good if you have access to power. And it's a very interesting insight into the human dimension. So there you
Uh,
go. So there's a real one too.
okay. Well, I will officially tell you that I now hate you because I just added. Now I have to add that to my backlog of books that I have to
You'll be
read.
happy to know there are some psychopaths and murder. So it'll keep your attention.
All right, it just made it to the number one of the top of my backlog list. I'm into behavioral analysis. I mean, come on, don't fault a person. It's kind of why I have you here. This is actually an intervention, Josh. Uh, no, it's all good. It's all good. I actually appreciate that, and I noticed a little bit of a theme between your first comment and your second comment, and it was in kind of the hero villain underdog scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're preaching to the choir here because 2 weeks ago I watched the movie Miracle for like the fifth time, right? And the all the other movies, Unstoppable, like all of my most favorite movie is the original version of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, right? Because when I showcased to folks, I presented earlier today the mustard wearing turtleneck little 5 or 6 year old, that was me, right? So when I look at him as this kid who just inherited a kingdom, right? That's that underdog story of where he grew up, kind of similar to me, and then where he landed. Walk us through the villain hero piece that you've manifested in order to be able to survive, but also how have you taken that to that next level moving forward with your life and your successes, which we'll get into.
Oh gosh, that's a big question.
Yes, it is.
Heroes and villains. Yeah, it has been thematic, I think, for everybody, right? My earliest heroes were my parents and my sister. In my formative immediate family, and then my schoolmates and my teachers. But some of those teachers became villains because I didn't understand at an early age what lessons they were trying to teach me. Later on, that became university professors or coaches in some sports. And even farther along were some of my early employers, not understanding how to fit into their rote system, or not understanding the lessons they were trying to give me, not understanding the stressors they were under. So, really, I think a lot of those later stage heroes that became villains, ultimately, I had more empathy and active listening and trying to understand who was sitting from the other side of the table from me, and learning some of the lessons that they gave me. I think that's probably where I became a better leader and a better manager and a better follower and a better teammate, maybe even a better family member. That's really been my gift to myself, is trying to extract myself from any of the emotional stressors of a contentious situation where I feel like there's a villain that I'm opposed from, and understand where they might be coming from, what unique perspective they have, turn the tables a little bit, and see if there's a way to actually drive towards a similar goal. It goes back to your Chris Voss comment. If I remember correctly, he was a master negotiator in some very tense political and criminal situations.
Right.
But he found a path to actually save lives. He found a path to actually release hostages. And I read the book a long time ago, but that was really, I'm getting blown up by all these friends of mine that must be watching this. So the five people I texted, about this are all watching this live stream, which is great. A couple of them own their own businesses, so I'm supposed to do some shout outs to drive
all
some
right.
business for them,
This
but
is
we'll do some commercial breaks later. Yeah. Did that answer your question about heroes and villains? I want to make sure I answered.
Oh,
Yeah.
sir, you just slathered on like again about 5 different pieces that we could segue into. But yes, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the intro to the conversation. The first go round and this explanation because um, it is important for us to realize what our core motivators are, what we do and don't want, what our values and beliefs are, and you've been able to frame that in a compelling way from youth to now. One, two, you also talked about empathy and learning and kind of adjusting to like square peg round hole no worky, right? Like how do I need to round myself out so I'm still maybe oblong or otherwise, but I can at least fit in that circle better, right? Or change the circle and make it a square. So I love that, and um, I think we could all relate to the not being understood, right? And thinking it's their problem, but sometimes realizing we need to do the improvements, the self care, the introspective work for us to maybe say, okay, they're not getting me, and I love this. So I love this. So, but let's translate that now into because you said some beautiful things, family, a better person, everything else, and that's deep, and then we can go into that. But I want to respect your time, number one, because we will be here for a full hour, I guarantee you, based on what you said. um the hero to villain component, like the mindset components, it- where was that transition where you started to feel, maybe you didn't recognize it, I think you do now, where all of those were coming in and helping you with your career, managing teams, building companies, etc. When was that period in your time where you're like, or as you look back, where you're like, this is one of those scenarios where I realized, oh, I should have thought this is why I'm translating this or doing that.
Um, I was interviewed one time for a role, and the interviewer asked me what type of personality I like to hire. And I thought about it, and I didn't have a requisite answer. And so I think I failed that part of the interview because I try and appreciate all the individuality that someone can bring to the role. In sales, you might have type A hunters, you might have type B farmers, you might have people that are really focused on customer success or mutual success. Some people are focused on purchase orders and just closing deals and winning. Definition of winning can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I have my own personal definitions of that, but I didn't want to impose that on people when I learned more about them. So, number one, active listening. Number two, empathy. Number three, trying to understand a little bit more about their DNA and what makes them a superhero, to use that term again. So, I'll transition the personal foundational hero villain superhero arc into the professional one. So when that interviewer asked me that question, I realized I wanted to build a very unique team. I didn't want all Wonder Women. I didn't want all Supermen. What I wanted was a Justice League that actually could bring different abilities and different perspectives to build a really well operating, highly performant team because they were bringing differences to the bar. If we're in the middle of the desert, Aquaman's not going to fare that well. But there's other superheroes that can support them because not every single salesperson is going to be 300% of their quota all the time. So
Right.
when one person falls, you need other people to be able to support them. So I like to bring differentiation, different backgrounds, diversity into the mix, people from different parts of the world, people from different upbringings, people from different experience levels. And so I think everyone can be their own unique hero if you are doing active listening and empathy and understanding and appreciating where they are and meeting them where they are.
I
Good,
love
bad.
that.
I can't see your
I,
face. I can't see what you're
I
saying.
mean, I may need a nap after that. I'm just saying that was powerful. I love that. And you know, um, based on and here's the beauty of it, because we hear this a lot. There's a ton of shit out there, right? Where people would say that, right? And then you look at their history, and you're like, but you've had a a, a history of, and you've got a legacy of success that kind of says, yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. Number one, so I kind of think I might believe him. So, how do you get people to recognize one of? Let's just pick one of these topics, because this is something that blew my mind in 2020, and it was rumbling before that, and it was getting traction, and then I got really confused. Maybe it's just the simpleton in me. Maybe it's just exposure that I wasn't really diving into the whole industry. But in 2020, this explosion of empathy and books and courses and development programs and workforce development. And I was looking around, I'm looking left and right. I was managing, I don't know, 50 to 100 people at that point. And I'm like, what's the big deal about empathy? Don't you care about your teams? Right? Don't you care about the people you work for? Don't you ask them, hey, what do you want to do instead of what you're doing? What are you interested in? What's going on? And it just blew my mind, right? And again, I was in a pressure cooker of roles for years, right? And I said to myself, I'm like, wow, you're actually paying for that book or that course, or to bring somebody in to explain to you how to care for people, right? To show empathy, right? To listen, be a generous listener. We had a group 15 years ago that brought in somebody to talk about generous listening. Everybody else on the team was like, what the hell is this? I was like, wow, this is pretty compelling, right? So why is it that we have to learn the hard way? Like you learned it probably naturally. I'm assuming somebody didn't force a course on you, right? You probably learned it naturally. Why do you think there's a disconnect there between kind of growing into it and understanding that empathy and understanding and listening is something you should do as a leader and should do as a person, versus kind of browbeating people to say, you need to take this and you need to learn this?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I don't want to overgeneralize, but I think a lot of people went into a corporate office pre-COVID era, and the strongest personalities won. Meaning, when you're in a situation where you're in an office, you're within four walls. I think of the story around CAA, the talent agency. If you know the background, creative artist agency. I think Mike Ovitz and their team. He had a very strong, irascible personality, and that won the day. And if you operated under Mike's rules, it sounded like you did very well financially. And if you broke from the mold, you found your way out of the organization very quickly. And so I think a lot of fear factor existed in corporate offices for a long time. And we have to adhere to the standards that those individuals set. So the oligarchy won. I think COVID created a situation where everybody was equal for at least a few weeks. We were all in a terrible situation. We're all in pain. We're all scared. We don't know what's happening. We're all over Zoom. There is no one with a big corner office. Everybody's got this office, books notwithstanding. And I think it was a moment of human interest and empathy that drove people to understand that you had to meet people where they were, and you had to make allowances for children to show up in a Teams meeting, or for dogs to bark, or for people to have to go do things to take care of their families or their own situation. And I think that woke up the world to realize there was a better way to work. I think some people had that feeling for some time. I grew up, as I mentioned, in a very happy home, but also through a pretty terrible divorce. So I realized empathy and active listening, and realizing that though my parents were my superheroes, they also could have kryptonite. They could also have problems, and seeing them as human instead of deities was really a great life lesson for me. And now I look at CEOs and chairwomen and chairmen and people that rule these large organizations or associations, and I realize they're all human too. I've talked to a couple of board of directors this week, directors of boards, I should say. They're human beings. One person and I spent a long time talking about our upbringing in Brooklyn. and how 1/8 of the U.S. actually goes through Brooklyn at some point in their family, and their upbringing and what Brooklyn meant to them. And that was a segue into a business conversation, but that empathetic bonding about a place and an experience was really important. I think people learned that coming out of COVID too. Some people are innate with it and born with it. But everyone can learn a lesson about empathetic listening and trying to meet people where they are. I think it's a great way to start a business conversation.
It takes a lot to keep me quiet. I just want
I couldn't tell if you were talking or you were on mute or if you were waving at someone behind the camera. I didn't know what were you having, like some sort of like medical problem?
Seizure. Yes, I'm having
You
a
have one of those life alert things? Do we
You
need
triggered me. Yes, you
a
triggered
life
me.
alert?
Yes, I was waiting for the battery to kick in to realign me. Um, so wow. Pitkin Ave. That's all I have to say in Brooklyn, right? You know,
Nice.
I Bronx, Brooklyn, and a bunch of other places. Brooklyn, you're right. And and I love that because you were able to make a connection, right? You were able to understand each other. There was a trust in a relationship you either already had or you reinforced and you created a stronger one, right? And it's not always something that people focus on, right? And when you kind of level set everybody, where you're not in an ivory tower, beautiful corner office, and you're, you know, like for example, I'm in a freaking garage. Nobody knows that except for everybody who's going to listen to this, right? You
I,
think I'm in some, you know, nebulously beautiful area? No, no, I don't. That's why I appreciate your background and being real. And I mean, it's just beautiful, and not only the books but the color spectrum piece. So give your wife kudos on that one. All right, I digress. But
Mel, I'm
um,
sorry. Honey, did you hear all that? Did you hear Mel? Okay. She says thank you.
this, so you know the caring portion and the understanding portion and the kind of level setting. I love that. And you know when you're able to build those kind of relationships with people, right? I'm assuming you're a power broker at doing that, right? Because I want you to tell me what your biggest successes that you didn't think you were going to have because you felt there may have been a contentious contract relationship or you know as you were building your empires to either flip and do whatever. I want you to talk to me about any type of scenario where you were like, this is going to be a loss, we're not going to win this, we're not going to do this, it's not going to work, but then you were able to kind of figure out, you know, whether it's a personality conversation, some pivotal piece where there was an aha moment for you to say, oh, this is how I should approach it, and this is how we're going to work it, and this is how we're going to flip, win, you know, whatever it was, whether it was a client, a sell, or anything else. Because I know you've got to have some kind of stories around the potential doubts to success of what you've done.
Yeah, a couple of ideas came to mind. The first one, individual accomplishment. When I was much younger in my career, this 15 years ago, I was an individual contributor in sales, and I was at a very large Fortune 100 prospect. And the enterprise architecture lead looked me in the eye in a meeting and said, "You'll never sell $1 of software at this organization."
Wow.
And it was devastating because we had already spent months and months and months preparing to actually find a way to service this account. But instead of taking no for an answer, we gathered ourselves up, dusted ourselves off, and went around. I say us because it is a team sell. I don't think there is an individual sell. You know, even if you're an independent contractor, you know, you're still going to be working with the person on the other side of the table. So it's always a team sell. But in this case, I did have sales engineers, I did have customer support, I did have executives, I did have my leaders that helped me. And so we all cobbled a concept together, went back to other parts of the organization and found ways to actually insert ourselves through value, through creating customer success, through earning the right to actually sell. And we did about $15 million over the next couple of years with that particular account. That's the first thing that came to mind, but actually that doesn't feel like the whole story. That's an individual success, something that I was proud of early in my career. So at a macro scale, that sounds amazing. What comes to mind now in my career is when an individual contributor comes to me or an entry level person trying to get into cybersecurity or a young person early in their career that hasn't even figured out where they want to go, or one of my personal children in my family says, "Hey, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for meeting me where I am. Thank you for helping me on my individual journey." Those are huge wins for me nowadays. And I really enjoy, again, building that Justice League, building the Avengers, looking for companies that have that same kind of ethos. I'm at one now at Zero Networks. I'm having a great time actually solving a problem for the cybersecurity industry. That feels good. I was at Duo Security for years. We actually solved a problem. We were very proud of the culture we built within the company, but also with the practitioners that use the tool. I feel that same way about Zero Networks. I see some of my friends at all these startups, the people that are texting me saying, "Please say the name of my company on the live stream." Um, these organizations that actually care about solving problems for customers or partners or even the employees that work there, those are the ones that create a lot of momentum. Those are the places where I find the most pride. So solving problems at a micro level for an individual and helping them on their journey, or solving problems at a macro level through the solutions that we bring to bear, whether it's the companies I advise or invest in, or the one that I work at, or the places I can help my friends. That's where I find the most the most pride.
I expected this from you. So again, keeping me speechless over here for periods of time. Wow.
Is this pencil distracting? It's my
No,
security blanket. I'm
no,
using it
it's
because
it's
this is
not.
my first live stream, and I feel
No,
like I've got to have
it's
something to
not.
poke you with if you
I
talk too
got
much.
I got you.
Okay.
I'll shank you. Listen, I'm Puerto Rican. I'll shank you with mine. Okay. Um, so um, I love that, and you tapped into something that I talked to a lot of people about. You come into the career development component of things early on, and you think you like something, then you switch to something else and you learn something else, and then you kind of find your groove, right? So you've got that first layer of, I've got something that's sustainable, that I can grow in, that I can make money. And then when you start getting really good at it, you start to develop your teams, and you could sell your companies, but then you get to a point where you're so good at that in order to master it, that third level, which I tell people, you have to give it back and you have to teach it to others, right? Because trying to explain one concept to 10 people may take 10 different ways to explain it at 10 different paces. So that mastery level for me is a beautiful component on the leadership tier that, we know what we've gone through. We know what we've done. We own our successes and our learnings, and now it's the give back. So like to me, you've teetered into that conversation of the give back, right? Kind of why I have these conversations with leaders. What's a give back? How do you want to memorialize your learnings and everything else? So I love that, right? And the fact that you're open to having an entry level person or somebody else come into you and say, how do I break into cybersecurity? You can't field them all the questions in a request, but you try to help out where you can, or you join the organizations. I may or may not have announced a few of those recently, right? To be able to do that as part of my mission, that I've been on. But how do you balance if you're not, if you're not walking on water like you, how do you balance the give back with the sustainability, right? Because some folks are struggling, thinking they're doing the right thing in their career and their growth, maybe marginally making financial gains, but still really want to get back, and they're just too tired or don't know how to open themselves up to being able to help, right? You obviously, and I say this with the utmost of respect. I'm not trying to, not trying to demean you as the next Moses or anything else like that, because some folks may take offense to that. But you have had the successes and you're able to give back. What would you recommend to somebody who wants to aspire to do the give back and the learning and share in that, things that keep us safe and have those core values that we match?
You asked so many questions. I don't even know how to answer
Pick
that
one.
one.
Pick one. Yeah,
I'll
pick
pick.
one
I'll pick
topic.
one.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, First of all, I know you were being jovial. I don't walk on water. I am struggling to keep my head above water many of days. So it's a very vulnerable thing to say, but I constantly feel like I have imposter syndrome. I'm failing. I'm not clear on exactly what the next step is. That's why you have a support community. That's why you can reach out to mentors. My current CRO is a mentor. Our CEO is a mentor. My past CEOs and founders are mentors, and I do have an existing network across LinkedIn in real life that sometimes both that I can count on when I'm struggling or I need help. So I don't walk on water whatsoever. Um, but again, I appreciate the joviality that you mentioned it. So to that point, how do you give back? How do you sustain that? That's a balance, right? It's important. The old adage: if you teach a person to fish, they can fish for a lifetime. If you catch a person a fish, they can eat for a day. I think that's true. That's true in mentoring. That's true in coaching. That's true in sales. That's true in business. But, but was that applause or did you
That was
just static it out?
applause. That was applause. Yeah, the crowd loves you. I just say it. It just happens.
Well, I'm glad. Okay, so you're full of surprises, Mel. I have no idea where this is going to go. I feel like a water balloon's going to fall on my head any second, or you have some like gag gift for me at the end of the show. Um, I think that's the important thing to remember is how do you instill them with the right values and tools and grit and coachability and intellectual curiosity, or at least expose those or surface those if they already have them. A friend of mine actually taught me those concepts. A guy named Will Sasso, who I used to work with. Coachability, intellectual curiosity, grit. Wait, someone actually texted. We got our first comment.
We
This is
do.
amazing. Oh, it's a friend of yours. It's not someone I knew. Great. So the one comment we have today, it's a friend of Mel's. Well, hi, friend of Mel's. Thank you for writing in. Um, but I think, and she's laughing the fact that you did the applause thing. So nothing I said has hit any any measure of value for these folks. That's the best part of it. I told you this is the death of your career, Mel. This is it, Coach
I'll take it. I'll
Mel.
own it. This
You,
this will be on my tombstone.
enjoy
Death
the
by
garage
pumps.
today. Enjoy the garage today. You're going to be working in a garage as a valet, parking cars after this.
If that's what I
So,
have to do, that's what I have to do.
so, uh, so a friend of mine taught me a couple of concepts like help instill those values in other people. I think that was something that I try and do and teach them actually how to fish on their own. Again, using the superpowers or the tools that they have at their disposal. So that's something I've tried to do. In that regard, you don't have to sustain it because it can be enervating and exhausting to constantly give. I get fed from that.
Right.
I like to help customers. I have a set of customers. Some of them are actively looking for new jobs. Some of them are actively looking for associations or organizations what they can support in their spare time. Some of them are looking for more to be able to give back on their own. And so helping people and meeting them where they are and then giving them tools is something I've learned from a variety of people, and it's been a consistent in my career. And in doing that, I think I've been fed because other people are doing that for me, helping keep my head above water.
So I want to highlight at least two or three of the most beautiful things you just said. And the walk on water piece. Yeah.
Where's my sound effect button? Do I get to do that to you? How do you have all the
But
tools?
I'll
Is it
I'll
in the
play the
settings?
wah 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 for me, right? So what I like about what you said is because you just displayed it beautifully. Number one, you were humble, you were vulnerable, and you showcased that very clearly, right? I need to keep my head, above water as well, right? I don't walk on water, right? A lot of leaders should take that alone and say, if you can go on a wild ass live streaming piece with me or anybody else and admit that kind of level of openness, then you're the kind of leader that I want to follow, right? And you should be that kind of leader because you don't walk on water. You're not in the ivory tower. Even if you are physically, you need to pull people in. right? And the fact, again, that you're open enough to have conversations, right? And that you're at the same level in a conversation with someone, you know more, so you can share more and you can give. To your point, the sustainability component might be exhausting, but if you can give at the right level and you can kind of receive from that, because a lot of people ask me, and I keep posting this article to folks that I wrote 2 years ago, or this post that I wrote, Mel, how many jobs do you have, how many organizations do you help, why do you do this? I'm like, I do this because I receive energy, and I get motivated, they get motivated, and we do things, right? So I get people out of their head. So I love that. I love that you just literally hit all of those pieces. Those are leadership qualities that we all should aspire to continue to build and leverage. So thank you for that. We're not done yet. We got a bit of time,
Oh, I
but
thought
I
you were
want to.
shutting it down because you
No, no, no. I
ran out of
just that was just
juice.
so deep that could be its own freaking segment alone.
Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. I take the compliment genuinely. I think it's interesting. Those leaders that are tooting the horn or touting their successes are missing the mark. That's not the mark of a leader. I think leader is a very esoteric term, but I think someone that actually supports you to be the best you can be is a true leader. And meeting them where they are. So Aquaman can be Aquaman, Wonder Woman can be Wonder Woman, Batgirl can be Batgirl or Batwoman or whichever superhero you're talking about. I think it's very important to help them. So that is I think that is a hallmark of a leader. I always tell my teams, you may be the hero of your movie. You might be the lead actor and the director of the movie that you see through your own eyes. You're holding the
Right.
camera. This is my movie. When you and I hang up this call today, Mel, you're going to keep on in your movie. I'm going to keep on in my movie. But I need to remember that you're in your own movie. And so, how do I make your movie more special, more beneficial for you, more of a great production? How do I help you win your Oscar, your Emmy, or your Tony, Grammy, whatever you're
Right.
looking for? You're like an EGOT. You're like the sexiest man alive People magazine guy. So, how do I help you fulfill the best movie character that you can be? Is my job. If I say I constantly in this live stream, then I
Woo,
failed because I'm just
woo.
talking about me. But how do I make it about other people? That's the hallmark of a good leader.
Why are you doing this to me?
I want to be invited back. This is fun. This is good for
No,
my
you
movie.
really
I'm
want to crush my career.
narcissism. I said all that just to get invited back. I didn't mean a single word. This I was just hoping to hit I was just hoping to hit home with you. And so then I get on another one and another one.
Yeah. So you really want to dig that grave even deeper and deeper for me, huh?
No,
Uh,
I told you I do have a day job. I have to get back to that. So this is the one and done. We're only doing one live stream. That's it.
Yeah, you say that now, just like you said. Yeah, I don't really know if I should do this last week.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, by the way, I absolutely, and I think it's going to be really relevant and really specific to a ton of the folks that may listen to this. The three people that may listen to this, that the villain, the Justice League component, right? I love that narrative because it's easy to visualize. It's something that you should have grown up with if you're our age, right? Saturday mornings, right? Wonder Twin powers, everything else around all of these things, and the comic books and everything else. So I love that narrative because it's easy to remember. One, and as you were talking, one of the things that I remembered was my great colleague, literally brother from another mother, David Heredia, who has Heroes of Color, and he works here in LA and in other programs, sorry, in SoCal, really, to build an ecosystem and courses and development for arts and development and business knowledge for folks who are interested in being painters and artists and everything else. And he's got great programs that he brings to different institutions, but it's called Heroes of Color. And he's got fantastic pieces. So that theme of being a hero or villain, or that collective of the Justice League is beautiful. And I just want to call that out because he's doing phenomenal work. And if I'm going to associate that with the kind of work that you've done just in business or otherwise, that's great, right? And that's the kind of stuff from a leadership standpoint that you want to hear, right? Relatable things that, you just drop nuggets in here that, anybody should just listen to this to learn from and or get the affirmation or confirmation of, am I doing the right thing? So I love that. So thank you for
Yeah,
that.
my pleasure. As you were saying that, I was thinking more about the fact that the Justice League, the Avengers, they're larger than life. They're iconic characters. I think I love cybersecurity because it's more like the X-Men or the Fantastic Four or X-Force. It's the people that are more introspective, maybe the people that had a struggling upbringing, people that might not have fit in a certain other type of society, but the outcasts, the misfits, whatever you want to call it, highly intelligent people that also had a chip on their shoulder to fight the bad actors. Like, you can do well for your family and do good for society by actually securing these organizations. And so I think that's probably a better metaphor, like the X-Men character arc, if you know them. Storm and Wolverine. Wolverine's an anti-hero, right? Deadpool is part of X-Force.
Right.
Ryan Reynolds notwithstanding, he's an anti-hero. But these are the anti-heroes that actually save the world. They don't get the credit that Justice League of America get with the beautiful haul they have and meeting the president. And if you know the stories, they're larger than life. The X-Men are kind of undercurrent, but that's what cybersecurity is. But they're keeping the world safe, and I think that's a better metaphor for my personal industry.
I love this. I love this. And as soon as you created that distinction, I remembered a colleague of mine saying when we were working together, she's like, Mel, you've got a great team. It's like the land of the misfit toys, right? And you carry that through. I'm like, you know what? You're right. And you know what? We get things done. So the team, the component, that aspect of however you want to layer it, right? It's the hero that doesn't get the true, validation. He's not getting the gold, medals and everything else, but they're doing great work. And cybersecurity I will say the psychological safety, the pressures, the demands. We could go into all kinds of riffs on that, but I want to take the last few of this call because it's part of the title, and I want us to have you walk us through the journey that led to the hugs.
Oh.
Right. And again, if I'm off base on bringing it up, or if I'm, but I also want to be able to give you an opportunity to share and really kind of develop a bond with everyone who knows you. So yes, they will force you to be back on this show.
Mel is referring to the fact that I was on a plane crash, which they called a water ditching. Where I sat, it felt a lot more like a crash. In 2009, there was a flight that went into the Hudson River that Captain Sullenberger piloted, and co-pilot Skiles and a number of flight attendants were on board, 155 passengers in all. It was a U.S. Air flight that was going from New York City, LaGuardia, to Charlotte, where I was based at the time. And we did not make it. It was not a 2-hour flight. It was a 6-minute flight because we hit a flock of geese about 3,200 feet in the air. Both engines went out, and we ended up crashing. Now, whatever you want to say, fate, kismet, divine intervention, Captain Sullenberger, they call him Sully, had 10,000 hours of gliding experience in his personal and professional passions, and was able to safely cater I don't even know what's called a vehicle at that point, the fuselage, the plane to a successful water landing. It did change my life. I met some amazing people. I experienced some amazing things. I was given a gift, not just another day, but really a perspective that changed me. It didn't change me on a macro level. I wrote about this on LinkedIn. I didn't run for office. I didn't, at the time, I didn't adopt a child. I didn't climb a mountain, though I deeply respect the people that did those things. I did want to get a tattoo. My wife talked me out of that. But I actually wanted to get all the different religious symbols of the people on the plane that I could identify to put across there, because I felt like someone was actually watching out for us.
Oof.
But I've never had a tattoo. So she said, maybe hold off a couple months before you make that decision because that feels very permanent. Um, but I have that memorialized in my head. It's in my soul, right? I do feel like there was a lot of intervention from the first responders to the firefighters to the ferry drivers to the captains to the people on the shore that helped us to the passengers themselves. A phenomenal insight into human support and community coming together to make sure we were safe. And so it was a great story. Um, and and there's a lot more to unpack around that. It did change my life in a micro way. Like I enjoy that cup of coffee a lot more in the morning. I'm very present in this live stream. I hope you could tell with my family, with my coworkers, in the interactions that I have with people on Teams and Zoom or in real life. At the dinner I had last night, we had some great conversations. I learned more about them because of that active listening and that empathy that's embedded in me. But also, I know my own story. I want to hear theirs. And so my life has changed in a micro fashion, but I think in a macro one, because I'm actually appreciating all these interactions a lot more because I did see the end of the movie. It wasn't so great, but I got to actually rewind it and watch the movie again because I got bonus time. And that's a real gift. That all led to a number of news outlets calling, a lot of dignitaries reached out. It was a pretty tremendous time talking to CNN and talking to The Guardian in the UK and talking to the New York Times, the New York Post, and a variety of television shows. There was a movie made later on that I got to participate in with a number of other passengers and the other people on the plane. It was a fantastic experience. But Ellen DeGeneres' team called, and at the time, it was a week later, my shoes are still wet. And I said, I'm not doing anything. I'm not getting on any flights. I'm not comfortable with that. I'll dial in. But they really wanted people to join her, I think, in Los Angeles. And so I didn't go. And they gave the passengers that went this beautiful 2-week cruise and all this free luggage. And my wife looks at me while we're watching the show and she says, if Oprah calls, you're going. So because I missed out on the free gifts and the swag. Lo and behold, Oprah did call about a
Wow.
year later. And a number of us, about 90 of us, went to surprise the first responders who were going to surprise Captain Sully on this
Wow.
annual hero show. So Sully shows up on stage, 30 first responders walk out. He's almost in tears. He's pretty stoic, so he's never in tears. But he's emotionally excited to see everybody. And then we all stood up to surprise the first responders. Got to say a couple words with Oprah. She interviewed me for a few seconds. It was a lot of fun. I happened to be sitting in the amphitheater where she liked to hang out. So she came up. She said, Josh, that was great. I was like, Oprah, you too. We're having first name basis conversations, which was super fun. She gave me a hug. Everyone asked me, what's it like to hug Oprah? It's like hugging velvet and money and someone that's like your best friend forever, who is one of the most engaging, personable people you've ever met. Um, but it was great. I saw her a couple years later in New York City, and she remembered me. And she's one of those
Wow.
iconic people in the world that has that photographic memory. And I said, Oprah, and she goes, Josh, which is
Wow.
unbelievable to me. I think she just has that capacity to be able to do that. I was like, what are you doing in town? She's like, oh, I'm producing this show on Broadway. It's The Color Purple. I'm like, yeah, I've heard of it. I think it rings a bell. I think Oprah. She's like, "What are you doing in town?" I'm like, "Oh, business." I mean, what am I going to tell Oprah? I'm doing sales calls. But we had a great time. She gave me another hug. Again, it's very interesting hugging a billionaire, but she was one of the most supportive and genuine people. Eye contact, smiles, just authenticity, integrity. You could tell she had values, highly intelligent, just present. So I don't know what her personal plane crash was or whatever made her that kind
Wow.
of person, but she is an iconic person. And if I can do that for somebody else in their life or their career and give them that presence that she gave me, that is my story of the two hugs.
Wow. Wow. I had to keep looking down at the screen to remember your name, Josh. I just want to let you know. Wow, that
You're Oprah 2.0, Mel.
I honestly that is beautiful and in the sense of you're identifying this next phase or this next piece that you were able to be afforded, right? By surviving it, right? Even if it wasn't, to your point, it's just a mud skipper scenario, Sully and the movie Sully and all these other pieces. I appreciate. I was living in New York at the time, right? So I appreciate that and I understand it. But the experiences after that, I think, are just beautiful. A year afterwards, right? I'm sure hopefully you've gone on a cruise and gotten new luggage since, but you remove the fact that and I think you'd made the right decision, to be honest with you, right? The opportunity was there, but you weren't ready. And to your point, your shoes were still wet, right? Like, and I get the people who may have shown up, right? Because that was what they needed to do. But when I talk to people about the different religions and the different deities and the different beliefs, I talk about the universe,
Mhm.
right? And the universe gave you opportunities and you took the decisions that were right for you. So with that, I appreciate you for that. And I appreciate you for being open about that, and carrying a message that is incredible, right? And yes, velvet money is is a great way to describe Oprah.
I don't, it's right off the dome. I just thought of that right now, but yeah, I think that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
She's pretty incredible. As I'm hugging her, I felt like people were blowing out her hair during the commercial break and then fluffing the hair, making her look perfect. She only had
Right.
90 seconds, but it was
Right.
great. Yeah.
Everything was in slow mo, right? She was just approaching you.
Like
I love that.
kind of like this live stream for your viewers. They feel like everything's in slow mo.
Well, you're getting some folks that I'm not connected with or that are want to keep it anonymous. They're saying go for the trifecta, right? So I can't express enough how incredible the last 54, 55, 56 minutes have been. I can't even believe we've been on this long. But I knew you could fill more than an hour. I knew that you would bring what you brought to the table. And for that, I thank you, sir. Thank you so much, because you literally have just filled the memorialized version of what leaders can and should do and the experiences and how they can express themselves. So thank you.
My pleasure. Mel, you give a service to the community. You bring a sense of integrity yourself and humor and class, and you are present. And it is a lot of fun talking to you. So I really appreciate the time. It was a lot of fun. In all seriousness, um, this is the last time we will talk. So I will miss you. But but
It's
but,
not the last time we
right,
will talk.
but I
I'm going to
appreciate.
tell you that. I will hunt you down. I will osint you. I will dox you. I don't care what kind of security systems you've got going, but yeah, don't play with me, sir.
I'm, I'm scared. You talked about murder and psychopathy and all these things. I feel like I should just submit and say, okay, we'll hang
You
out.
see
You
how
can
this works? You see how the psychology works? See how I laid the groundwork,
amazing.
right?
I appreciate the 6 friends that dialed in and doubled Mel's audience today. So thank you. Uh, it was a lot of fun. In all
Thank
seriousness,
you.
a lot of fun. My first and only live stream. I really enjoy it.
Well, don't be careful what you ask for on, hey, I'd love to talk to you, Mel, because it's not your last one, because I think this was beautiful. It
In all
was
seriousness, in the 100,000 people that are looking at this right now, currently, if there are things that you're looking for, Mel is here for you. He is a coach. He's a life
no,
coach. He's a good person.
no, all right, no.
I
If
am
you're
here
looking for
for
security
people.
solutions and a leader that can change the world, Josh is here for you. He's got the connections, he's got the experience, and he's got a beautiful open heart to be able to help you with what you're looking for. So I appreciate you. I thank you. And it's not about me, it's about you right now. Last week was about me when we talked.
Okay.
All
All right.
right.
Well, I don't know.
Thank
How
you,
do we say
everyone, for
goodbye? Is that it?
joining.
That's it.
That's it. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Josh, we're going to go off into the sunset. I will say the crowd is ecstatic, uh, and they love you. So, have a fantastic holiday break, sir.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks, everybody.
everyone. We're
Bye.
out.